Three easy ways to make drum fills in your tracks. I'm using Logic Pro today, but you don't have to use Logic Pro except for actually one of these. Unfortunately, I think it's only available in Logic Pro. I'm a singer-songwriter too, and so feel free to subscribe to this channel. Just passing things on, knowledge I have that I've gained over the years, to hopefully that it can be good for you. So feel free to subscribe and stick around. The first way, and actually the way I use a lot just to get ideas of different fills, is using Logic drummer tracks. So let's open up a new drummer track, software instrument, and actually, no, it's not a software instrument, it's a drummer track. And basically, this is going to, you might be familiar with this. It's going to create this drummer track region for us here, this bluebird. There it is. So we can open up Y, our library here, and then change the drummer, right? Now we don't want the entire track. We just want the fills. So how I'm going to do that, let's use this in context too. Let's have a listen here where we do have a fill. This is our fill here.
I guess I misunderstood. You left me wasted.
More of a organic singer-songwriter feel. We'll get into also the electronic and heavy type fills later, but this is a simple fill that was made with the drummer track. Bring up our drummer track here. How you're gonna do that is put a drummer track in where you want the fill. So let's say we wanna recreate this. So we want it in here. Then we're gonna open up E. Then put the instruments you want the fill to be. Do you want it to be a tom fill? Do you wanna have claps in it? Do you want it to have kicks in it? For me, I'm just gonna do a kick and snare fill. The fills are always at the end or in the middle of the drummer track here. So I'm just going to actually scroll this right where I want the fill to be, which is at the start of verse 2. So I want it to just line up right here. So if I just solo this, now we can get an idea of a fill. So that's a pretty sloppy fill. But now since we've narrowed in on the section here, we can just dial in on the fill. I'm not going to spend the time finding the right sound, but you're going to need to do that to find the actual sound of the fill. And you can do that by opening up your library by pressing Y and then changing or going through different drum sets. You're going to have different sounds of kicks and snares and this kind of thing. So let's just use Liverpool. You can also do this with an electronic drum kit, right? It can be analog circuits, and this is going to give us an electronic fill here. So I'm just going to bring this fill knob down. Hear what that sounds like. Sounds a bit cool. I'm going to take the clap off because I don't like that. Now let's say I like that vibe. Then we can go with the simple here. Maybe make it more simple, so more to the left. You can see it's taking away things. If I go more complex, it's going to add more things. So the idea is play with the fills, this little thing here, and then the quadratic. The beauty about drummer tracks is everything's going to be in time as well. So now how do we get this data, right? These actual MIDI notes. What we do is, well, we can do a couple of things. We can right click and go convert to MIDI region. And now we just have that MIDI data. So we don't need the rest of the stuff, right? Like anything up to it. So we can just delete that. And now we have this MIDI data, which is the fill. So if we decide later on we actually didn't want some of this, we can go into the MIDI data and just edit it. Maybe we don't want that tom. We actually want this tom to be open hat. And this is a great way to see how fills are made. You can see how it's created with MIDI data. So take these ideas and then create your own fills. If you don't want MIDI, you can we'll go Command Z. We can also bounce this into audio. We'd go to File, Bounce, Track in Place. So this just bounces you an audio file of what's happening here. You might be asking yourself, okay, what if I want to mix this properly? Is it possible to break the toms, snares, and kicks into their own separate files? Yes, you can do that. But if you're going to do that, then you need to start over. You can't use a normal drummer track like this. You have to use I'll show you. Open up your open up your library, sorry. Down here in drum kits, you have to go to Producer Kits Plus, and then we can open up this Liverpool Plus. Now it basically, you can see it's given us a stack of instruments. So you can mix and those elements separately. For example, if we just soloed this now, we can hear what that sounds like. And if I did the same thing, if I converted this to MIDI, you'll see here, it still hasn't created those separate tracks. So we have to go back up here, right click again, and then separate by note pitch. And then that's gonna break it down into those separate tracks for us. So now you can also separate these tracks as audio files too. This is getting a little deep, so skip to the next one if you want the next drum fill. But quickly, you can separate this into separate audio tracks as well. In order to do that, you have to do the drop down, drag this down to overheads, and it's going to just like create the MIDI for you, and then bounce this overheads track in place. So file, bounce track in place, and then make sure you have as additional tracks. And then this is going to create 4 new audio tracks of the actual fill. So then you can go and, affect those tracks as you would. So here they are: the kick out, the kick in, the snare, the toms. The second way to do drum fills, actually just using samples. So something like Splice, and just search fills. You can search snare fills, hi-hat fills, drum fills. Let's just have a listen to some of these. So that's a pretty huge fill, big tom fill. Without wasting a lot of time and getting the mood of the sound, let's just create get this really obnoxious fill here. I'm gonna download it, go over to Logic, and I'm just going to open up the Splice app here, and it should be at the top. Here it is. So I'll just drag it in at the bottom, and I will drag it at the top. And what you can do with fills is you can chop it up too. You don't have to use all of it. You will have to put it in time though. So if we just played this, it won't sound great. Super compressed and loud, isn't it? So you do have to hold Option and drag to find that right timing. That could, arguably work. It's the wrong sound, but that's how you would drag in samples, time them by holding Option and dragging to the nearest grid. Sometimes it's just not going to work for you if you're dragging in a sample that's in just a BPM that's way off. Stretching it too much and stretching it down too much is just going to make this audio not sound good. The third way to make drum fills is actually just draw them in yourself, play them on your MIDI keyboard. Maybe you have a drum set, but we're not going to get into that. How you would do that is, let's use our example here as well. Just going to delete this Splice one, and I'm going to delete this one. If we want to draw it ourselves, we just have a new software instrument track, and now I can just go and load in what you want the fill to be. You can load up a drummer track, you can load up a single instrument at any time. So open up library. Let's say we actually want the whole drummer track. Let's say a different thing here. Let's say we want the SoCal drum kit. So now we have the SoCal drum kit, play it on our keyboard. You gotta have fun with it. If you're not a drummer, this can also be very difficult.
Going somewhere good. I guess I misunderstood.
I don't know, maybe something like that. We don't want the first 2 tom hits. So I'm going to delete these ones. Then let's go over here and dive in. We do want to quantize that quickly. So Command A, quantize by 1/16. It's a bit delayed, so I have to have it move up one. That's your most basic fill. We could get much more interesting now that we kind of have the idea and we're in the MIDI editor. Maybe we want 2 toms here. Maybe we want, a snare here as well. I don't know. Let's get crazy. We can go wild. The snare sounds a bit weird. Maybe no low tom here. You space these out a bit. That's kind of cool. I like that. And we just drew that. Definitely not an exhaustive list of different ways to make drum fills, but 3 ways I use a lot in my songs. So please feel free to subscribe, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video.